You're listening to the Desert Moon Hockey Podcast with Matt and Rich.
What is that game called? Oh God, it was like Jet Set Radio. Hell yeah, there we go.
I was gonna go Nintendo Kitten Adventure. And we're recording. They've been listening to us ramble for 10 seconds. Hi, what is up? Desert Moon Hockey Podcast. Episode Adrian a coin. Hey.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Richie, take it away.
All right. Okay. Well, that's a way to start the episode. On today's episode, we have quite a few things to talk about, including Barrett Hayton finally getting off the goose egg and getting his first point. Thank goodness. We had more unsuspected wins coming out of teams that you'd expect to be playoff teams this year. Including unsuspected, or I should say, definitely suspected losses by the Dallas Stars at home, but they did not make it pretty. They definitely blew up the Coyotes. And then we get some great news to talk about at the last subject here, which is that Dylan Guenther is going to remain on the Coyotes at least past his 9-game stint, which is
Can we actually start
very
with
impressive.
that? Because I have a concern.
Okay.
And it's nothing to do with Gunner or the team. I think Gunner's played phenomenal. I stand by what I said, that he's an NHL player. I think the best competition he should play against right now is NHL. Probably going to be best for his development.
Yep.
He's coming from the guy that when I watched that preseason game in Tucson, I thought he wasn't gonna make the roster. And then when we got to regular season, I'm like, okay, he'll probably get 5 games. We'll be conservative and send him back down. He has exceeded every expectation. He has just been that guy. Absolutely love Dylan Guenther. It's happening a little earlier than we all thought, but hey, remember what I said about young rosters and young players? They can boom or bust. But one thing I don't understand, and I hope that you can provide some sort of clarity and make this make some sense, is the amount of Coyotes fans that are like, burning that 1 year of the ELC is going to come back to bite them. And my mindset is pretty clear. Let's just say we get Adam Fantilli. That's going to be my stand-in for this year's draft. All right, so unless Cooley, Gunner, and Fantilli are all going to make $10 million plus, and this is all like at the exact same time, which is highly unlikely. They'd probably get bridge deals first. You still got to make it through ELC, how guys are working. But unless that is the scenario, and even then, BA has done a pretty good job of making sure that, the Hayton contract, the Krause contract, even before the Hayton contract was signed, hey, they act like we have so much cap space, yet you had $20 million in cap space. He's being very conservative. I don't understand the concern that this is going to bite them later. I don't get where that's coming from. Do you have... can you justify it? Or
Yeah, so I think what a lot of people are afraid of is when you look around the league at young guns who get big money after their entry levels. So I'll just use Vancouver as an example, right? They made a bunch of stupid choices with picking on like UFAs. They took on a lot of veteran UFAs that cap crunched them and suffocated them. We know as Coyotes fans, we took on $12 million worth of cap space relief from them just because of 3 veterans that they signed way too much money to. Because of that, it made it very difficult for them to sign Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, Quinn Hughes, all those guys. It was very difficult. It was a very tight, a tight squeeze to get them in under the cap. And what people are afraid of is they're looking at that projection and going, we don't want to be that team. Well, here's the thing. They also signed really, really dumb contracts, like veteran contracts, to get themselves into that situation. I don't suspect us doing that. The only questionable contract that I could see going, okay, this is a lot of money, would be if the Coyotes were to actually max contract sign Austin Matthews. If that does ever happen, that would be the only contract where you're going, okay, money's a little tight now. If that's not the case, which let's all be real with ourselves, Coyotes fans, it's a shoestring dream right there. Okay, in reality, he probably isn't going to be in Arizona. I still stand by my bet, so I'm waiting for that jersey. If not, I'll concede and buy you a jersey.
I
But
only want him in Arizona for the reactions in Toronto.
yeah,
Like I said, that's the only reason.
yeah. But so that would be the reason why so many Coyotes fans are very fearful, because they don't want to see that happen. And speaking of Toronto, that was another team who struggled with cap space because of contracts that they took on, like John Tavares. So that's where a lot of people are finding a lot of fear. The interesting thing is that Dylan Guenther, what you can also do too, I was listening to PHNX the other day, and they were talking about this, and I forgot about this. If you don't play over 30 games, you don't actually burn a year off the ELC. So I think it's called a slide or something like that. So that's the way that works, and you can slide it, I think 3 years or 2 years, and if you slide it multiple times, then the player, after like a certain amount of slides, will become I think it's like an Article 6 or Section 6 UFA. That's what happened to Bunting, actually, I believe, is that he played enough games consistently over, that 9 games, but not enough to, play a full season, that after, like, I don't remember the exact ruling on it, but after, like, a certain amount of times of you doing that, the contract becomes like a UFA contract, because you're not playing them fully. That's something under the NHLPA that they added in. But that is another option, and you can end up, sending a person back even after they've successfully gone through 9 games. So that could be an option.
I think that, just to be frank, I think we shouldn't even be considering that. 'Cause it's not like he's a fringe, oh, he might be, might not be, we want to give him more time. It's, at least in my eyes, as long as he keeps working on the holes in his game he does need to fix, he is an NHLer. So I don't even want to entertain we can still kind of maneuver around the cap, we can still do this, we can still keep the ELC. It's like, if he's ready, let him play.
Yeah,
I think he looks ready. I think the team thinks he looks ready. I think Bill Armstrong, even though he's a very, very conservative individual when it comes to prospect development, management, contract, stuff like that, even he seems to think that this kid's ready to play. So I'm like, even while that is technically a possibility, I don't even want to entertain that. I'm like, I think he's ready right now. And then if you look at Logan Cooley down the line, wouldn't you also want to stagger out contracts just a little bit? So that way it's like, hey, you don't have every contract ending at the exact same time. So even if it's only a 1-year buffer, just theoretically,
yeah,
I feel like that probably helps you out more long term.
I would say so. I think it's important to kind of stagger a little bit, so that way the hit's not as bad. And then worst case, like if you're doing really well, you can always sacrifice draft capital to take bad contracts out. So just for instance, if we want to talk about a bad contract that was signed, wasn't just John Tavares in Maple Leafs land, it was also Patrick Marleau. I think it was like $8 million, and they couldn't afford to sign, I think it was Nylander, so they moved Marleau out to Carolina for a first, and sacrificed their first round pick for moving that contract out. These are just things that you can do if you got to do it. So yeah, there's a lot of options, and I do think that staggering's perfectly fine. I do think that, like, yeah, it sucks. Like, you want that symmetrical, like, they all come up at the same time, perfect. I can understand how some people feel that would be valuable, but at the same time, like, making the kid play with Matthias Michelli and Barrett Hayton and getting, like, experience with all these young kids that he's probably going to be playing with for quite a few years is also really important, as long as he's ready, and he's looked by all means ready. If he's ready, air quotes, and he's like a fourth line grinder role, like, I would say absolutely not. Like, don't put him in that situation. He's going to lose his confidence in his shot, like Christian Fisher did. Yeah, so you can't do that. But so far, it looks like he's been deployed in more of a active role on the team for scoring.
Yeah, definitely playing top six. And wasn't he playing with Keller last night? I know they shuffled the lines up a little bit, but for the most part, he's been mostly with Michelli. But I think it was Kells, Hayton, and Gunner last night. And I'm like, look, I think Hayton needed that, honestly, because Gunner's a sniper. Mm-hmm. Keller is a very good... Anywhere, honestly, because he also has a good shot, but he's still really, really good with the setup and the passing.
Yeah.
So I think Barrett Hayton heavily benefits from that. And like, as much as I like Boyd, and Boyd has chemistry with Keller, if you think Hayton is part of the future, like if you see him as being that, I don't see the issue with breaking Keller and Boyd up when it probably is going to benefit someone who's going to be here longer.
Well, what's crazy is that the past like 3 or 4 games, Coach Bear, he's been running 7D and missing one of those forwards. So he has been playing the shuffle game like crazy, which is cool to see. Like it means that you get more chances of like you're just watching the ebb and flow of the game, and you're like, okay, this guy looks like he's doing like he wants to score. Like I'm gonna put him up on the second line instead of the fourth line, or whatever. The only downside to that, though, that you got to be careful about is, obviously when you get your tap on the shoulder, like you know you're ready to go. But sometimes you make the mistake of like, if Bear's like, line 3, and you were just on line 3, you think you're going, and then you jump over the boards and take a too many men call when you didn't get the tap on the shoulder.
I found that to be... I thought they had one extra forward, but apparently they didn't after Cassian. I don't understand why they didn't call up Dauphin earlier. I'm assuming it had to do with them playing games in Calgary. So like, hey, let's let Tucson keep the momentum a little bit longer. So I guess that makes sense. Because I think he scored his 5th goal the other night against the Wranglers. But I was just confused why, especially for the last game at Mullet before this long away trip, why they were running 7D. I don't understand that. Like, yeah, there is a bit of a benefit there, but even then, you could also line shuffle naturally with 4 lines, and you have 1 extra forward. And it wasn't like they were having Dice and Mayo out there playing forward. They just kept essentially shuffling around defensive pairings too, from what I noticed. So you also kind of run the risk of burning out players. And it's like, I get it, they're NHL caliber players, but at the same time, I feel like that's a decent experiment for a couple of games if you need to. I don't really want to see too much more of that. I would prefer that wasn't the case after this.
So I agree. I'm not really a fan of the 7D pickup. Some people like it just because it's supposed to technically be less wear on your D-man. You don't have guys playing 30 minutes a night. But when you look at the ice time, like ultimately, I think JJ Moser was still leading in ice time for with 20 minutes or whatever, even with that 7D split. So
that's because he's a number 1 defenseman on an entry-level contract.
Yep.
He's literally a number 1 D. Like, I as much as, again, while he's still on the team, we still like Chychrun. I just think Moser, right now, and especially over the last, 2 years, has just been better than Chychrun. And it's nothing against him. It's just JJ Moser is a beast. He's just straight up, he's a beast.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up ice time real quick here. I want to see if I can find it. Just to make sure. But yeah, so Washington Capitals game. So this was Saturday night, yesterday. JJ Moser, 22 minutes with 7D. Mm-hmm. Dyson Mayo was the 7th defenseman, played only 6 minutes.
So who is he mostly swapping out for? Nemeth?
Nemeth has technically been on the team, on the top 6, or not top 6, but the just the 6.
I know, who is Mayo probably mostly swapping out for?
They
left-hand defenseman.
Yeah, I mean they move them all around. Valimaki's been playing off wing with JJ quite a bit, and it's been looking pretty good, which is interesting because usually a lot of coaches won't do that. They want the left hand, right hand setup, but Valimaki's been playing offhand and looking pretty good, not bad.
Do you think they're already going to work on a contract extension, or do you think they're going to wait until closer to the trade deadline to see maybe if there's mutual interest in an extension?
I don't know. I don't really know. I think they're just gonna ride the fun for right now until they see what he wants. That would be my guess. I would be open to an extension with him.
I don't even know what the contract would look like as of right now, because he has injury issues in the past, and also just he couldn't really crack like Calgary's main defensive core for whatever reason. I think Audie was saying because it was just really deep in Calgary.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, sure, that's fine. But he's come here and he's looked really good. He's a top 4 defenseman. I don't know if he's going to be consistently a top pairing his entire time here, but he's definitely a top 4 from how he's looked. He's provided some pretty decent puck moving and a little bit of depth scoring on him. So it's like you have a little bit there that I didn't expect any of the offensive upside that we're getting. While it is minor, it's still good to have.
Yeah.
I don't even know what a contract would look like. Would it be like a 3-year thing? Would it be a 1-year, prove it for another year, and then you get a longer term deal? Or would they be like, you know what? With your age, you're right around where our core would be. Here's a 5-year contract, and we'll deal with it. Like, right around, like, in 5 years, realistically speaking, they should be making the playoffs for, like, the second year in a row. Mm-hmm. If not at least the first time. So it's like, we'll know what we need. So it's probably best to have your flexibility right around there.
Well, I would say a perfect example is look at all the contracts that we want to be talking about, right? This is the time where you'd be looking at that and projecting it out. So obviously this year is going to be under his $1.5 million. So next year, if let's say he's signing another extension, and you're also signing Adam Fantilli and Logan Cooley to their 3-year contracts, maybe you give him a 3-year as well. And then after those 3 years, then he's ready to go. If he's looking like, all right, he's not going to be a part of this team after the 3rd year, then you can trade him, let him go, whatever needs to be done. That way you have more cap space for those guys that are going to be getting off their ELCs, or you really like him and you're like, all right, you know what, we like what you're doing, let's keep it going. The only bad part about that is that after his 3rd year he would be a UFA, so just something to keep in mind. But I think I'll take that second.
The idea of potentially it being 5 years, where it's like right around, like the mindset being right around there is when you should know what you need moving forward. So like, let's just say Yuso was like, yeah, I want to be in one place for a while. So it's like, let's say he wanted 3 or 5 years, so we use 5 years as an example. Wouldn't that make some degree of sense, depending on the cap hit, obviously, to be like, hey, so right around then we would know, like, if we had other defensemen coming up, if we needed to move a defenseman for another forward, like if we needed to move something around to get what we need. I kind of feel like that would be the max. I don't feel like anything longer than 5 years would make any sense, but I feel like that would make some sense if it was a mutually beneficial thing, because that's right when you would know, hey, we're 2 pieces away. Hey, our defense just needs to be tweaked a little bit. Hey, we need an extra scorer. We can use a 3rd-line center, like something like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're to do that, I'd rather just kick the can down the road and do 1 more year of RFA, just to make sure that you know what you're getting, because as much as I've liked Valimaki, it's also only been 11 games. Like, we haven't seen the mistakes, we haven't seen the problems, right, that are necessarily in his game. We haven't seen what it's going to be like if he does end up on that first line with J.J. Moser by the end of the year when all the guys are traded. So I would say it may be better to do a show me contract and just kick it down the road, kick the can down the road, and see how it looks, and then after that maybe give him a big contract.
It's like a 1 year, $2 million. Like, obviously, you give him a raise because he looks pretty good, and I think the defense overall, ever since he joined the team in that Canadian half of the road trip to start the year, I think the defense has just looked better. Not perfect, obviously, that Dallas game comes to mind immediately.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to look better when you take when you take Dyson Mayo out. Like, unfortunately,
What's happened to his game? Like, he looked really good last year.
I mean, he looked really good last year, eye test wise, but when you look at the advanced stats, he was not very good last year. The only reason they like him and they keep him around is they think they really like his locker room, like how he is as a person. I think that's why ultimately he's still around. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up back down in the AHL sometime soon here. He's just looked not ready, unfortunately, which is sad because I like the guy. I think I do like his play style. He reminds me a lot of Hammer. Just he hasn't been nearly good enough to be even remotely considered a Hammer type guy yet.
Yeah, it was weird because I think when he was drafted, he was supposed to be a two-way, and then I know in Tucson he put up some decent numbers, but it's like when he came to the NHL, it was mostly focusing on defense, and I feel like he's also a little more of like I don't know if I'm just remembering some plays in isolation, but he has a little bit of a grinder type defenseman in him. But it's like, who do you call up? Because Cam Denis is playing so well in Tucson. I want him to stay in Tucson. I feel like he's kind of a cornerstone of the Roadrunners, and when I've seen him in the NHL, he just kind of looks okay. It's where it's like, I think he'll just work better. Like, some players are just better in the AHL. So who do you call up? Maybe do you give Soderstrom another go? I know he's looked a little better this year, which is good, but, you know.
Well, right now, we're already running 7D, man, even minus Connor Timmins. So we've got Ghost to Spare, and then obviously Chikrin might even come back, too. So we've got Ghost to Spare, Nemeth, Valimaki, Brown, Stetcher, Mayo, Moser, right? That's 7. So if you send Mayo back, you're back down to 6, and you're just waiting on Timmins and Chikrin to become healthy, right? So if they're a few weeks away, like, you might just run Mayo for that 7th defenseman position for a few more weeks, and then when Chikrin comes back or whatever, then you move. Honestly, probably Nemeth back to 7th defenseman.
Well, yeah, because as much as like I think Nemeth has played okay, like, I know it's because when you're playing on a playoff team, if you're not very good, especially in a big market like New York, you get trashed on. Like, I get it, it makes sense, but yeah. I think he's looked okay in Arizona. But him, as much as I do like Brown, I still think Brown's a pretty decent defenseman. Those are both easily replaceable when you need to bring Chikrin and Timmins back into the lineup.
Yep.
So you'd be carrying 8 defensemen. So I guess when you put it like that, I just don't know when Timmins is coming back. And I know Chikrin had the setback, and usually week to week means about a month. So maybe we're still a couple weeks out from Timmins. So middle of this month we should be expecting probably Mayo will stick on the roster, but being the extra defenseman. And then Nemeth probably gets kicked out for Timmins, and then probably after another week, one of those two, probably Mayo gets sent down, just depending on where Chikrin's at.
Yeah, that's what I say. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
You're just tired, boy.
I'm yawning up a storm.
I would say at least that makes sense.
I would be
kind of having that second person to break it down for me makes more sense, because with how the Chikrin situation is and how he's hurt, same thing with how Timmins, his entire stint here has been injured, except for I think a total of 12 games or 13 games, something like that. It's kind of like I almost just don't consider him on the team. So I'm just looking at the defense like with those names scratched off, you know? Don't
be surprised. I'm going to put this out into the universe. When Chikrin comes back, don't be surprised if that third guy out is going to be Troy Stetcher. I don't think he's looked very good.
He's been okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Like I feel like he's been making a lot of defensive mistakes in front of the net. And honestly, I think Josh Brown has been better. I know that they're left hand, right hand, so it's like not as comparable. But when we're talking about a defenseman that's like close to becoming a 7th defenseman, that battle for like staying in the sixth defenseman spot, I honestly think that Josh Brown has played better than Troy Stetcher has.
I also like his play style, how it's more so kind of stay at home. It's more so like he does use his size to his advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And other than a couple of bad turnovers, especially that I think his first shift in that first game against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I saw on the live stream. I was like, oh, well, there you go. First time I see Brownie turns it over.
Yeah.
But I think other than that, he's just been solid. And I know on most other teams, he would just be the seventh defenseman because he's just a decent defensive defenseman. And if a guy is playing the exact same level but adds a couple extra assists per game or per 10 games or just looks a little better, Brown's the one that's going to be kicked out. So it's like, I think he has played better than Stetcher. I think Stetcher's played okay. I think mostly still a little better offensively, I guess, than defensively, but that's probably not saying much because he only has a couple of assists.
Yeah.
But even then, I feel like you're probably on the money for Nemeth and Stetcher to be kicked out when Chychrun and Timmins come back. The only problem is how do you shuffle around the defensive pairings? Because then JJ has to be, in my mind, on the top pairing.
Yeah.
And he's that good. And you said it's been JJ and Valimaki usually, or was it Ghost and Valimaki?
So it's moved around, but I've seen JJ and Valimaki a few times, and I've liked what I've seen so far of that pairing. I think that it's looked pretty good, and I, once again, would not be surprised to see that be our first line by the end of the year.
So let's just keep them as the first. Actually, no, because Chychrun has to go to the first pair because they want him. Essentially, it's not even just, because Chychrun's better, because, I mean, he probably is still right now, even though I think JJ Moser's been playing better. But it's still like, hey, you want his trade value to go back up. So you want to scout him against the best competition.
Well,
so he probably goes right to the top pairing, if not minimum second pairing.
Well, you wouldn't put him there first. You'd probably start him on the third because he hasn't played hockey in so long. You need him to get his feet back before you throw him against a Sidney Crosby or an Alex Ovechkin. Like you put him up against lesser opponents to get him comfortable, and then maybe after like 5 games, then you can move him up. That'd be my personal opinion.
I get the logic. I just don't know if that's the route they're gonna go, because a lot of the times when your number one center gets hurt, he's out for a while. When he comes back, they normally have him at least playing second line center when he comes back minimum. And it's usually like, hey, you're pretty much going right back in the role that you left, if not a little bit lower, until you get your feet wet again. So it's, I don't know. I feel like when he comes back, he's probably going to go right at least to the second line. But you also still want to showcase as much as possible because they probably don't want to drag this trade situation out much longer.
Yeah, I'd probably say that's true with not wanting to drag it out longer. I don't think you put him in that situation. Like, he hasn't played hockey in a long time. I get that you want to bump up the trade value, but it's one of those things where you might not be bumping up the trade value if he's put up against Connor McDavid and gets blown out. Everybody goes, oh, wait a minute, this guy can't play hockey anymore. We're not trading for him. You got to be careful. You got to pick your battles wisely there. As for a guy who he could probably play with, I'm not too sure. I thought that, Timmins was going to be his partner coming into this season, but obviously the two have collectively not been playing hockey, so that doesn't help. Probably going to play with Brown if I were to guess. Start out with Brown.
That would make sense because normally, even though Chychrun is good defensively, he's also still considered more of an offensive or two-way defenseman. So you always want to pair one of them up with a defensive defenseman.
Yeah.
So that way, same thing with, was it Jans playing with McCulloch? I know McCulloch had to play with a handful of offensive defensemen. I know Demo and Jobo also played together a lot, but it's one of them can pinch in going for the offense, and then one immediately starts skating back. And then, hey, if the pinch is successful, I can just get back into the play. It's fine. If the pinch isn't successful, you at least have one defenseman back already in transition, waiting for the 2-on-1 or whatever comes up.
Yeah, that's usually what you like to do. Is you have the guy that defenseman that's not very good at making the up ice pass. You have him on one side that he's probably like a little bit more defensively responsible. And then the guy who can make that good first pass you have on the other side. And whenever the other defenseman has it, you just feed the guy that can make the pass. That's the secret. That was my job.
That was your job.
Can't make a can't make a upwards pass, so feed the defenseman that can.
So I guess then it would be Moser, Valimaki, Ghost. Let's just pretend Timmins is also coming up at the exact. Let's say that they both come back at the exact same time. So would it be Ghost, Timmins, Chychrun, Brown, or would it be Ghost, Brown, Chychrun, Timmins in the third pair?
If they'll come back, sorry. Say that again. So, Ghost.
So let's just say that Timmins and Chychrun both come back at the same time. So your second pairing is Brown and Ghost, and then you have Chychrun and Timmins on your third pair.
And then Valimaki and JJ on the first.
Yeah, they're your first pair right now. As much as I like Ghost, he also gets all of his minutes on power play, so it's fine if he plays second. If he plays second pair.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that sounds about right to me. That's probably what I'd do. And then whenever Ghost gets traded, you just throw Nemeth or Stetcher back in.
Mm-hmm. And because they already have an abundance of left-hand shot, they could probably. It just depends on if Valimaki is okay with going back to the left side. Because if he keeps playing well on the right, and Moser's playing good on the left, it's like maybe you just don't mess with that. And then it's pretty much the second and third pairing. That's your fluid situation. And then hopefully by trade deadline. And again, this is nothing against Ghost. I love Ghost. Hopefully Ghost and Chychrun are traded. And then maybe we get another prospect come back. Maybe you give Soderstrom another go at the end of the season, just depending on how things go.
Yep.
The defense is going to look really different, but that's also why you bring in Stetcher and Brown and Nemeth, because you want to still have some veterans there that, hey, they can come in, they can play. Let's say Soderstrom's not ready. Well, nothing to worry about. Stetcher can finish the season. Oh, hey, this guy that we got in this trade probably isn't going to play right now. Okay, well, we have Nemeth. Nemeth will play that third line role.
Yeah. Yeah, and we got Nemeth for another year, so it's not like he's going to be gone after this year, so you just kind of insert him whenever you need to. Let's be real, he's not going to be traded this year. There's no way in hell. Next year he might, so maybe you give him a better look next year. Ultimately, yeah, with an extra year in that contract, this year is just kind of a fluff year for him. I do want to say
just, hey, we need you to be a veteran presence. Hey, you're going to get a little more responsibility than New York. Just kind of essentially hold down the fort a little bit. And it's like, again, he's looked okay. So as long as you just keep building on whatever you're looking at now, you'll be on a contender next year.
Yep.
And we'll get like a 7th round pick or a 6th round pick or something like that.
Yep. I do want to say, though, real quick, that if you've made it this far into the podcast, if you could give us a like, a follow, a subscription on whatever platform you're listening to us on, I'd really appreciate it, because it, helps us grow and helps the algorithm and the numbers and all the fun stuff. So if you could do that first, that would be real great as we talk about who's going to be the 6th or 7th defenseman on the worst team in the NHL, the Arizona Coyotes. Anyways, so back to
3 points out of the playoffs. You shut your mouth.
Yeah. So anyways, let's talk a little bit about some of the games that went on this week. How about that?
I don't want to talk about the Dallas game. Look, I'll just tell you right now. I'm looking at everything right now. It was 4-0 after the first period, 5-0 after the second. Jamie Benn scores 27 seconds into the third. It's 6-0 before Valimaki, his first goal as a Coyote at 5:07 from Michelli and Bukestad, and then Michelli his second assist in the night on a Kraus goal, his 5th at about 9:06 of the third. So it was a decent little effort towards the very end. I know Ingram got blown up. Vamelka, I love that man, turned into Mike Smith at the right time to try to secure Adam Fantilli. That was a beautiful pass. He should have got credit for an assist on that one. But
he definitely should have got a primary.
I kid, I joke. But honestly, it's I know. I think was it me and you having a conversation about empty net goals and how they shouldn't count. I might have been on another podcast. These conversations all blur together.
I don't think that was me.
But it's when it comes to it might have been Nick Pinkerton actually, twisted wrister, but because those empty net goals, I think they're pretty important too for getting the guy's confidence up. And I think I mentioned Krause specifically.
Mm-hmm.
After those first 2 goals that were empty netters, that I joked, oh, he's going to score 20 this year just off empty netters. He's had 3 goals in the last 6 or 7 games? Like he's
something like that.
He's turning it up pretty well. He had a 3-game stretch where he scored 2.
Not just garbage goals either. Like actual beating a goalie, good clean goals.
Because sometimes you just need to get the monkey out. Like we're gonna talk about Barrett Hayton in a second, but same thing with goal scorers. If you're you just signed that new contract, he's trying to. Okay, where's my role on this team? How am I gonna still produce? How am I still gonna keep essentially filling that offensive role with the minutes I'm given, the role I'm given? You get frustrated.
Yeah.
Hey, I haven't scored 3-4 games in, and I know in the middle of the season, I know it's a line taken from NHL 21. You can clown me in the comments, but it's like, at the middle of the season, no one cares. But at the beginning of the season, you're not scoring. People tend to look at you a little more like, hey, what's going on? Especially just after signing that contract, that probably frustrates you. So you score a couple goals empty net, build your confidence up a bit. Hey, I'm still producing something. And then you start putting him in. And he's still on pace for, what is it? It's around 20 goals right now, 17,
I have
22,
no clue.
23
is
his pace. It's somewhere in there, which is still good for that contract. I think if he keeps up at least a 15 to 20 goal pace, I prefer 20 goals, but it'll be fine. Love Krauser. So it's good to see that. It's good to see Michelli getting the points. I don't know if you saw, there was a little graphic on Twitter of the rookies right now. It's like the little Calder race.
Yeah.
Is obviously leading.
Yep.
Gunner's around the middle with 6 points, 2 goals, 4 assists, playing well. Michelli has 7, and I think he's third.
Yeah, he's
third
tied
a
with
single goal.
He's tied with Pinto. Which is crazy. So Beniers had 8 points, Pinto has 7, Michelli has 7, and then Gunner's in the middle of the pack with 6. I know, crazy. All it takes is Gunner to have a 2-point night, and all of a sudden you're tied for the lead. So pretty crazy to see that these Coyotes rookies are putting points up and probably aren't even going to get even remotely considered for the rookie of the year.
I think Gunner will, because Gunner has a high enough profile.
Michelli,
I love Michelli. Michelli is a guy that no one knows who he is. No one's going to know who he is. I saw one article that Kyle Pereira linked me to on Twitter where someone was saying, pointing out the good things that Michelli's doing and trying to spotlight him. He wasn't a Coyotes guy. He was a reporter.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, more of that. He's going to be, not just an underrated guy, but one of those guys that the fan base knows him and loves him.
Yeah.
A dedicated group of NHL fans know him and love him and appreciate his skill level, but he's never going to get that consideration unless he has 10 more points than the guy in second place.
Yeah.
But Gunner has a high enough profile where even if he makes it close, he'll get a couple votes.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean he's going to win. He does need to turn a second gear if he's going to win Calder, but I don't care about the second gear this year. I care about keep developing your game, keep producing, and show that you're part of the core. And so far, he's doing that. That's all I care about with Dylan Guenther this year. But it is fun to be in the Calder conversation. It is fun to have 2 Coyotes players that are top 10, and both of them are top 5 in production for rookies. It's good to have that, and it's one of those things that I said it before, I'll say it again and again. It's one of the things I was kind of looking for last season with young rosters. They can boom or bust. They can just take off. Sometimes it take longer for players to develop, but when they do, they can just go. Took Michelli a couple years, primarily because they try to hold him back a little bit, which was probably for the best. As much as I hate to say it, it was probably for the best, hold him back just a little bit. But Guenther, it's essentially, hey, this is my roster spot now. JJ Moser, that's my roster spot. He's a top 4 defenseman as a rookie.
Yep.
Michelli, kept working, kept grinding, and essentially with his play, looked at the coach and said, "You're not sending me to the A. You can't. You can't."
Yep.
And that's what you love to see, and that's the things that we should be excited for. Because while it's fun right now, I'm going to keep memeing that we're a playoff team because we're 3 points out. That we keep getting those wins just frequently enough to be mediocre right now. it's like we're not a playoff team. But I'm keep the meme alive. But realistically, that's what you're looking for. Because let's say we get number 6 overall. Let's just say we don't end up getting top 5. That would suck. But let's just say you still have all these other pieces that are looking good, and that's what you can still build around. So you can still build forward with. So it's like, don't just focus on number 1. Also focus on how your prospects are looking and how these young players are playing. Because Cooley's looking good in the NCAA. Obviously, Gunner and Michelli at the NHL level, and there's a couple players playing pretty decent hockey in Tucson. So
yeah, and you're gonna
keep your eyes out for all of it.
And you're gonna end up winning more games when you don't have a third or fourth line that is Jay Beagle, and who else was in that trade?
Anton Roussel was third
Roussel,
or fourth line.
Yeah, Roussel
was
and
everywhere in the lineup pretty much except for first line. He was like, depending on what they needed, but it was normally bottom 6.
Yeah. I anybody that you put in that roster spot is going to score more points than those 3. So, Louis Erickson. I don't know why I was trying to say Eric Carlson.
Don't you
I
dare
wish.
trash talk King. Don't you dare trash talk the King.
Oh, I will trash talk the King.
I'll fight you.
The King had
Halloween as King Louis.
The
King got a crown right over there.
The King had like 4 points last year. All right, so
you shut your whore mouth.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a not really needing that on my team for 400.
I would have signed him back. I wanted him back on the 4th line. I mean, think about it like this: if they would have signed Louis Erickson to 1 more year, we wouldn't have to run 7 defensemen for the last 4 games. We would have been able to just have him plug in the lineup and then call up Laurent Dauphin anyway and say, "Okay, thanks for playing 3 games, Louis Lawrenson."
Yeah. No. I liked him, and I even thought about, I toyed with the idea of re-signing him, but after seeing this team and the way it's constructed, I would say absolutely not. He would have been just an anchor on that 4th line.
He pretty much would have just been Zach Cassian without the physicality, essentially.
I mean, I feel like Zach Cassian has still more offensive upside than Louis does.
Like, come on, this is not turning into a Louis Rose sesh. I can't do it.
You brought us here, all right? So I don't want to hear anything.
Fault. You were talking about the Canucks, but no. Okay, back to the Coyotes.
Yeah.
With the way this team's constructed, and I know we had that clown Toronto reporter talking about how terrible this roster is, but it's constructed well, and the mission statement's been the same. Obviously, last year you had more veteran presence. This year it's a little more youthful, but the mission statement is still the exact same. They're going to compete. You're going to get more competitive games. Like you were saying, there are more games that are close. We've also had a few more blowouts. Unfortunately, it happens. But we're getting more games that are close. We're getting, at Mullet, the first couple games we lost were 1-goal games.
Yep.
One we pushed all the way to overtime. And while that was a collapsed lead, it's still showing that this team is still going to compete better. You're going to be able to, I remember how many times last year did I tell you, yeah, I was listening for the first period and didn't bother for the rest of the game when they were on the road because I'm like, the game's over. They gave up 3 goals in the first period. And
all the time.
It sucks, but it is what it is. And it's like, hey, if I had content to make or whatever else to do, it's like, hey, I still listened for the first period and I'll still catch up on the notes. But this year, even when I'm busy, I'm still like, I have a reason to tune in. Like last night, they're down, 2-0. Ovi got that record-breaking goal. Absolutely happy for him. Love Ovechkin. I really wish he was on the Coyotes at any point in his career. Would never happen, unfortunately. But I'm still, while busy, checking in on the game. Hey, I'm going to listen to some of the first period before I was on this little frozen yogurt date with my wife. Hey, I'm going to check in what's going on, watch some highlights. Hey, I'm going to look at some live tweets and play-by-play, essentially, see what's going on. Like, there's a reason to check out the games now, even when they lose. Even last night when I'm like, hey, they're probably going to lose. It's still more entertaining. And that's where you start. Because while this year isn't playoffs, Next year is when you push to be around the wild card. Doesn't mean you make it, but that's when you start, hey, we're pushing, we're getting better, this is what our core is going to look like. So I almost feel like they're a little ahead of schedule, which this might not be the draft to do that. Let's be honest, this might not be the draft to be a little ahead of schedule, but as a fan, it's so fun. Like, it is so much more entertaining when you get to watch a little more competitive hockey, even if it is, unfortunately, in that one regard, probably a little ahead of where we should be.
Yeah, that'll happen when you have a good coach, right? And we saw this last year. Like, coach doesn't just give up, right? So He's going to keep working these guys and working them hard. And when you have slightly more talent than you did last year, you're going to end up with wins like we're seeing right now. I mean, we beat the Florida Panthers, which were the President Trophy the President Trophy winners last year. Like,
Which,
I get that they
Panthers
lost.
fans, you're gonna thank us for that, because when you're not President's Trophy winners this year, you're gonna win more than one playoff round.
Probably. I still think that's a
how
pretty
it
good.
works.
I think that team is still a pretty good team, even if they've been struggling.
They'll add a piece, they'll be fine. Like they'll get it together, but it's always better to avoid President's Trophy because they don't win cups. I think it's only happened a couple of times, if that. So it's Panthers fans, you will be happy with this loss in the long run, because when you're like second, third, fourth in the East, and you make it to the conference finals, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, it's probably better to not have the amount of expectations, or this thing that we're seeing a little too consistently, even with Tampa Bay when they won the President's Trophy, is you're peaking too early. Even the Suns, for basketball, for just 3 seconds, the Suns, when they were number one all year last year, they peaked too early, and then they got bounced in the second round. So it's like, you're probably going to be okay with not finishing first overall and not, winning the President's Trophy this year.
Yeah, there's something to that too. Like I remember looking at the numbers when you look at like the history of the President Trophy winners, and then if they won the cup, and if you do like the math, it's like 12% of those teams won the cup, and when you look at like the basic numbers, it's like in the playoffs you have like a 16% chance of winning the cup, right? Because of how many teams there are. If I don't remember the math exactly on it, so I'm sure somebody's going to go, it's actually this amount. But it was something like that. It was below what you would, the normal number would be, right? So like if you have 8 teams in the playoffs, it's like a 16% chance if you're one team. And then because they were a President Trophy, like they were slightly below that 16% or whatever it is. I know, I'm just using the numbers so that you get the idea. And that's really strange, because you'd think like it would be at least at it or slightly above it because you're the best team in the league. And for some reason, there is something to that. Like if it's like you're saying, they peak a little too early, or maybe the overconfidence gets you, or whatever. But yeah, you end up getting bounced by the Columbus Blue Jackets in 4 games.
Because think about it like this: if you as a fan, as someone who loves playing the NHL games and scoring 12 goals a night because you love seeing big numbers, you like seeing records, you want to see, hey, I have 4 40-goal scorers on my team, right? Like, you love to see that as a fan. But when you have these guys that are busting it that hard throughout the regular season, and the regular season is a grind, it's not an easy thing. I probably couldn't even compete in one NHL game, let alone 82 in a 6-month span or 5-month span, whatever the season is. But if you're all the gas is out of the tank right around the end of the season because I wanted to hit this record, I wanted to 60 wins or something like that. What do you have left in the playoffs where everyone else is pacing themselves out? Everyone else is, we want to win, but we lost a couple extra games. We're not going to sweat it. We're just going to go move on to the next game. They're going to have more in the tank. So that if you're tired, and you're also like everyone's game planning for you too. Everyone has all this footage of just how good you are. What are the weaknesses? How do you shut them down? Oh, hey, Chris Paul, if you take away Devin Booker as a shooting option, and he's tired later on in games, how many of those 3-pointers is he going to hit? How many times is he going to force a bad pass? Like, that's what you're doing. You're game planning for the best. And I know I slipped back into basketball for a second. I apologize. Right back to hockey. But it's probably a few factors, primarily those. Just you peak too early, so you're kind of running out of gas when everyone else is pacing themselves. Like, you're sprinting and they're marathoning.
Yep.
Because you can see the immediate records, the immediate goal of, oh, hey, number one, 40 goal scorers, most wins in franchise. Like, you're seeing those, and you're so preoccupied that the championship almost becomes an afterthought.
Yeah.
And then you get in there, and another team's hungrier. So it's like, if you literally have a higher likelihood of winning the cup, if the Coyotes make it to the second, wild card this year, let's just say, the fact that they would have a higher likelihood of winning the cup than the Panthers had last year should tell you something, regardless.
Yep. There's a saying, I think it's in the military or something like that. It's slow is smooth and smooth is fast. You know, that's kind of the truth with the playoffs is like you can't just blow all of your energy at once. Like you gotta conserve it, because if you do it, you're gonna end up being a lot slower than where you were previously when you were rushing as quick, as hard and as quickly as possible. Do we want to talk about Nick Ritchie?
Yeah, I do actually, because now that we've kind of gotten a little more of that conversation out of the way, there are currently two different Coyotes that are on pace for, Cross having 5 goals, we can kind of calculate it out a little bit. They're both on pace for around 30-ish, which is ridiculous. If not, what you said, Ritchie was on pace for almost 40.
He's on pace for 40. Unironically, he's on pace for 45 goals. When you do the math.
So Krause is on pace for like 30, and Keller's on pace for around 20. He's taking a step back goal scoring, but he's a little more pass heavy this year, which is good.
Oh my god! What? I'm trying to pull up a calculator so that I can do the math. Okay, so what was Krause's game played and goals? Is it 11 games played?
11 games played, 5 goals.
Okay, so we do 82 games divided by 11 games, which gets us... oops, I hit the plus button before I did that. Sorry. You're bad at math, I know. That'll get us 7.45, and then we multiply that by how many goals does he have?
5.
5 goals. That gets us, he's on pace for 37 goals.
So he'll probably hit his 20, if not maybe a little higher. Let's be conservative with it. But Nick Ritchie, look, I know you were doing a little bit of trolling on Twitter, and I applaud you.
Yeah.
This isn't a like gotcha. Like this is like, and I applaud you.
Oh,
It's funny the amount of like Toronto fans are like, oh, we're giving you garbage. Oh, he scored a couple goals for the Coyotes early. It doesn't matter how many goals he scores. We got Lyubushkin, who went to Buffalo, by the way. You don't even have that asset anymore.
Yep.
And it's like.
And Dzingel, who isn't on there, who wasn't even on that team.
I like him. I would not be opposed to him being part of the core moving forward. He's not going to be here next year. That's I think all logic points to that, regardless. So the fact that we're probably going to move on from him and get anywhere from, if he keeps this pace, exclusively if he keeps this pace, anywhere from a late first to like a second and a third. Like, we're going to get a decent return on him for essentially giving away a player that wasn't going to re-sign with us anyway. As much as we love Bush here, like, he wasn't going to re-sign.
If Ritchie stays on a 45-goal pace, we will 100% get a first for him. Somebody in the going to the playoffs is going to pay for a 45-goal scorer that is, 230 pounds? Like, that is a huge body that you absolutely would want in the playoffs if that's your style of team. Let's say realistically where I think he's going to be, which is like a 30-35 goal pace. I think that's more realistic for Ritchie. Even still at that, I would say you're pretty close to what I would guess is like a second and a third, or second in like a B tier prospect. Something like that.
Which is good for free, because again, Lyubushkin wasn't going to come back.
Nope.
Dzingel, I love Ryan Dzingel. I think he's a very good two-way forward. He just can't stay healthy. And they weren't going to bring him back. I don't think he had much interest in coming back here either, or else there would have been conversations about him coming back in the offseason. Yeah. So it's like, that's just free real estate.
Yeah.
It's just free real estate.
well, what's funny too is like when you look at those how those people were signed. So Lyubushkin was a free agent signing out of the KHL that the Coyotes got. Dzingel, free agent signing that year prior. Nick Ritchie was a free agent signing, I believe, right? By Toronto.
Didn't Boston buy him out, or they let him go to market?
Yeah, they let him go to market, I'm pretty sure, and then Toronto gave him a contract. So it's funny when you look at these assets, like nobody really gave up anything prior, but the biggest loser is once again Toronto. Like they can't the team that is so down bad that they can't even buy a W. Like
No, they've won their last couple of games because, of course, when you hit November, Toronto has to win. But, real quick, do you think there's any interest in bringing Richie back? Like, for, let's say, like a 2 or 3 year deal. Like, do you think there's interest there, or just the time, like, kind of like I'm thinking right now, the timeline probably doesn't work, so you move him at the deadline? Best for both the organization and the player.
So he is the epitome of kind of a Bill Armstrong type player. Not exactly. I would say that he's a bit of a gentle giant, which doesn't help his cause because I think that Bill Armstrong really wants somebody who can not only beat you scoring wise, but can also beat you physically. So he's not exactly the mold that he's looking for, but at the same time, shape and size wise, he is. So I could see a situation where he comes back. I personally don't think you hold on to him past the trade deadline. I think you trade him. You say, hey, you did really good with us. If you like our organization, you want to come back and keep playing here long term, we'll give you a handshake deal right now that if you hit the free agent market, we'll sign you for 3 more years or 2 more years or whatever it is. I wouldn't go past that. Once again, like we were talking about at the beginning of this episode about contracts, you don't want to have a contract like that past those 3 years. Those are the contracts that hurt you. Though if he's like a $4 million, $5 million
bodies can deteriorate quickly.
Yep.
So it's like, because I know you call him a gentle giant. I still notice that he'll throw the shoulder a bit. So it's like he's not quite power forward, but I think he does utilize the size decently. So it's like the Milan Lucic syndrome. I will always be wary in the back of my head when giving a guy a 5-year contract when they're supposed to be like bigger and like meaner. Because I'm always like, when is that gonna stop?
Yep. Yeah, and when he's been on the Coyotes, he's been on a really good goal pace. So ultimately, I could see him making like probably close to $4 million a year. Like he's on a 45 goal pace. If he even sniffs around that, if he's at like 37 goals this year, like that is value that that is good.
$6 million. Somebody will pay him.
Yeah, so that's good value. Like I could definitely see the Coyotes bringing him back for like $4 or $5 million, if he's on a pace like that. So
even if like by the deadline, if by the deadline he's at between 20 and 25 goals, and he looked at, or his agent looked at Bill Armstrong and said, 3 years, $4 million each, whether it's that handshake, the handshake and Tom Vermette situation, or it's just extending him and not trading him. I'm saying yes to that in a heartbeat, because even at about 25, 30 goal pace a year for the next 3 years while we're still establishing the core, that I think that's more than worth the $4 million.
Yep.
But if he's sniffing around, 25 to 30 goals around the deadline, which technically he's on pace for right around there, I could see.
Excuse me, I did the math.
Get more.
25 goals? Are you joking me? That's half. To the moon,
anyway,
diamond hands, buddy.
56 goals this season. Count it.
Thank you.
But that agent's going to be like, we're going to get $6 million plus in the open market. Like around the trade deadline, because you got a month left in the season realistically, and if you're around like 30 goals even then, it's like, yeah, no, you're probably, someone is going to pay you more, because you always have those teams that even if the smartest offer would be $4 to $5 million, if he was on that pace, hey, it's a really good value contract, he gets paid, we get a good player. You're always gonna have someone that's like, yeah, but we have $3 million more in cap space. We want this player.
Yeah, well,
so
it doesn't help.
Get this player.
It doesn't help that teams are going to get potentially upwards of $4 million of cap relief next year, if the cap ceiling goes up, and that all those teams are just going to immediately blow it on the dumbest stuff possible. Like that's what they do.
They didn't learn. What was it? Was it 2016 that the last big jump happened, and that free agency class, like one of the better contracts was Jason Demers.
Yeah.
Because it got cut in half and sent off to Arizona.
Yep.
Oh my
Yep,
god!
yep.
Like there's so much buyer's remorse. I think Urinating Tree made a video on it where it's like the free agent class of 2016 was just buyer's remorse. The free agent class.
Yeah, I think Okposo got like a metric butt ton as well too, if my memory serves me, or something like that. Like yeah, it was.
So
it was
somebody
bad.
will pay for Richie if he's on that pace. If he's around the deadline, anywhere near 30 goals, someone is going to offer him $6 million. I don't know how many years are attached to that. I don't know if he'll accept it because if he wants more years versus the money, don't really know. But somebody will be like, oh hey, I can fix him or I can use him.
Yep. And that would be like the biggest contract that he's signed in his career. So, like his total, I'm looking right now. His total earnings is $9 million. So his total earnings is $9 million. And if he jumps from, that to $4 million for 3 years, or somebody insane gives him like a 6x6, like that's his big ticket,
Oh,
right? So.
I love Richie. That 6x6 would age terribly by the 4th year.
Yeah, well,
I love Richie.
I'm not saying for the Coyotes. I'm just saying if somebody was stupid enough to do it.
No, I'm saying the hypothetical contract for anyone. Let's pick on Nashville for 2 seconds. Let's say Nashville did it. Like again, I love Richie. By the 4th year, that wouldn't look so good.
Yep. Yep.
I think we forgot to talk about Barrett Hayton. Did we forget to talk about Barrett Hayton?
Yeah, I don't think we did.
Barrett Hayton, after 11 games, and yes, his plus minus looks particularly bad. It's higher than I think everyone else on the team at -10. So he's doing a lot of things right. I just don't know if it's where he's at in the lineup. I don't know if it's just getting outplayed. I don't know if it's.
Well, he's been playing against. He's been playing against all the first lines. That's what's going on.
He's been top 6 all year, right? So it's been between the first and second line. He's
Well,
playing
no. Yeah, playing against other teams' first lines. Like it's hard to stay a positive plus minus when you're dealing with Jason Robertson, breathing down your neck the whole game.
I don't even need positive plus minus. I would just like around -5. you know.
Why -5? Is that your favorite number? Tell me.
I like 5. 5 is a very good number. It's a
All
solid
right.
number. So you
Five's-
look at it, you just it's got the curve, it's got the solid edges. There's a lot going on with the number 5.
All right. So what you're telling me is when we're on episode 50 plus, you're just going to be on cloud 9.
Until episode 55, yes, because episode 55,
Oh,
I don't care if they
damn.
win the cup.
All right.
55 will be an Ed Jovanovski hate video. That'll just be the entire. Anyway, but with Barrett Hayton, it's like I still, regardless of that number, I know it's a team stat, but also if yours is higher than everyone else, it does show some sort of message. I've seen him play so smart two-way game. I don't know how it's that high, except for is that really as simple as he's just playing against the best talent.
Sorry, I keep yawning. I would say so. I think it's really that simple. I think it's when you're going up against Jason Robertson and you're going up against Connor McDavid, and you're going up against Sidney Crosby, every single night you have that first line that you're going up against. It's hard to stay competitive and to stay even remotely close in your plus minus, especially when you're putting up no offensive points either.
All right, so last night, I'll also shout out to Jack McBain. Got another assist last night, along with Josh Brown getting a goal. But
thanks,
Richie,
Grav.
Two more goals. I know, right? So Clayton Keller passes it to Barrett Hayton, and it's a decent little shot, but it's one of those things where maybe it was a bit rushed. Maybe he just didn't get all of it on his shot. So you think, okay, it's a routine save. Then it just kind of pokes its way through, and then you got Nick Ritchie right there to clean up the change. I really would have liked Hayton to get the first point in Mullet. I feel like that would have been pretty good for him. But now that the monkey's off his back, now he's finally got that first point. Do you think he's been playing with a little bit of, is anxiety the right word? Where it's like, hey, you're kind of in your own head. Where it's like, hey, I need to produce. Do you think he's been playing with a little bit of that? And do you think that first point finally getting registered will calm it, and we'll start seeing like a point every 3 to 4 game pace from here on out?
I hope so. I said at the beginning of the season that I expected 55 points from him, 50 to 55 points. So far, he's not on pace for that. So,
Wasn't I a lot more conservative on that? I was like, I'll be good with what, like, was it 15 goals and 40 points or something like that, or 10 goals and 40 points or something like that?
yeah, something more modest. My goodness.
I don't show off my ankles, Richie. I'm a very modest woman.
Oh, okay. I do. I'm a good time. You're not. You can admit it.
I can admit I'm not a very good time. That's why the vlog has just turned into a lightning rod for angry Canadians.
I think he's on pace for like 10 points, so I hope that's not the case and that he picks it up. He has a good night.
Would you like a point every other game? Would you consider that to be a success moving forward, and that would kind of salvage the season after the cold start? Or is it just kind of like, I'll take what I can get because it was a really cold start?
Honestly, I don't know. So statistically speaking, I would say a point every other game would have to be what he's at starting now. If he's still like 1 point every 10 games, I would say that that's a disappointment to me, big time. I don't care if you're playing against the best, line every single night. Like, you got to get points, whether that's 5-on-5 or power play or whatever needs to get done. Because I think he's been getting power play time. I think he's been standing in front on the PP2. I want to say
he's been on the second power play unit. I don't know who he's paired with, but wait, wasn't Gunner on the second power play unit?
Gunner Michelli was on that PP2, and then you laughing at my PP2?
Yeah, I'm laughing at your PP2. It's
wow.
We are so mature here on the Desert Moon Hockey Podcast. By the way, if you're still listening, get us to 100 subs, Pulls. We're like too shy. Come on, get it done.
Heckin' yeah.
Oh my God, I've become an e-beggar. Richie must be so proud with the product he sees in front of him.
Yes. Yeah, I'm smiling.
You do that, you consumerist little worm, you.
My soul is extremely happy. And then I don't remember who's the D-man that's been playing that second power
Goose
play.
Is on the first pairing.
Yeah,
the first power play.
I think JJ's been on that first sometimes as well, but I would suspect him to be on power play too.
Sounds about right.
When Chikrin comes back, he'll definitely be playing power play too.
Yeah, because you want to get him some power play time. Because I would like Chikrin to score like 5 goals in his first 10 games and just, okay, you see, I scored, I'm out. Here's my first round pick and Matt Knees.
I would do that in a heartbeat. I'm just saying.
Dude, I would do Matt Knees for Chikrin.
No.
I would do it.
No. Absolutely not.
You don't like these knees?
I do like those knees, but he's still just a college student. You can't just bet everything on a college student. You have to have some capital there.
But he's got the AZ factor. Come on now.
Jeez.
What if Chikrin scores 5 goals the first 10 games? Call it 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points, right? So then it's a first in Matt Knees, and we have to take. Who the hell was their bad contract?
Jake
whatever
Muzzin.
the bad contract would take. Muzzin. So we're taking Muzzin back, right? What if then, like, 10 games later, Chick's out for the rest of the year, and we made out like bandits?
You're playing what ifs just as much as you're playing what ifs that Matt Knees is going to be an NHLer. He's a second round pick. I don't care if he's from Arizona. He's a second round pick. The likelihood of him making the NHL is like 5%.
No, he's going to score 40 in the NHL. He's an Arizona boy.
You can go harder, but that's such a risk.
You can put me on the ice and I'll score 40 goals. It's the Arizona effect. It's that AZ blood. Look at Tage Thompson. Look at how that guy's playing.
Yeah, I bet. Look at Josh Doan. Oh, wait, he's still going to be in college for like 2 more years.
Donor is enjoying his college years. You let that boy party. All right?
I will say, though.
NHL will be ready for it.
I will say, though, could you imagine a Matt Knees, Logan Cooley, Josh Doan line? Oh,
I'll
baby.
do you one better. Matt Nees, Austin Matthews, Josh Stone.
Oh.
All Arizona line, boys.
The all Arizona line. I like that one. That's a good one.
Then we trade for Cutter Gauthier. Unfortunately, it's going to cost us Lawson Krause and Barrett Hayton, but it's worth the sacrifice.
Jesus.
I want an all Arizona Cup. Think about how stupid it would be to have like an all Arizona team and they win the Cup in Mullet.
What are you trading away to get Tage Thompson? You trading Logan Cooley for Tage Thompson?
No, Logan Cooley could stay. We're going to make him an honorary. If he transfers to ASU, he'll be an honorary Arizonan. We can make that work. We can make that happen.
Okay.
Schmaltz and a first.
Oh, I don't think they're going to do that. Let's take one of the most dominant centermen that Buffalo's had in 10 years. We're going to give them one gently used Nick Schmaltz. That first better be Connor Bedard because they ain't doing that.
A gently used Nick Schmaltz and Travis Boyd, who has chemistry with the gently used Nick Schmaltz.
Oh, wow. Now that you put it that way... Now that you put it that way, no.
We're gonna call back David Spina to play on the fourth line. We'll sign Johnny Walker from the Utah Grizzlies, put him on the third line. There we go. We got scoring everywhere. It's all from Scottsdale. Hell, when Demetrius Kumuntzis, whenever he graduates, we can sign him too and have him be a third line center. I've got this team planned out. It's an all Arizona team.
Who's the who was the captain of ASU last year that signed to Tucson?
Colin Thyssen, but I don't think he was the captain. I think someone else was the captain.
Oh, okay.
I think he had an A on his jersey.
Wasn't he from Arizona as well too? Or no?
I don't remember. I'm gonna Google this live. You say what you're gonna say, and I'm gonna Google this live.
I was gonna say if he's there too, we call him up. We send somebody else back down. We'll put Cassian through waivers. Cassian will go down.
He's from Michigan.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then.
And he was the captain. You're right. Holy crap! I thought he was the A.
Yeah, don't doubt me. I didn't watch a single minute of that season, but somehow I knew it more than you did.
First off, all I did was keep track of the numbers because I was busy as hell last year.
Yeah, you got the notebook. Okay, but I only got my brain, and my brain works. My brain works like half the time.
But you're sitting there saying Matt Nees won't score 40 goals in the NHL. I don't think you know what you're
goddamn right he won't.
I don't think you know what you're talking about. What's next? Austin Matthews is just an okay hockey player.
Hey, you watch your mouth.
I'm sorry. The mustache is just an okay hockey player?
Thank you. The mustache is... You can insult the mustache, because I'm not a big fan of the mustache, but don't you dare insult my boy.
He should grow out his hair and spike it up, and then he could be Vegeta from Dragon Ball GT for Halloween.
He definitely could. I do like the comparisons of him to, who is it, Pablo Escobar or whatever. It's like, oh my goodness.
We have to avoid that comparison, even jokingly, because remember, Biz almost got canceled for making that joke.
Really?
Yeah, because he's like, oh, tell Pablo to calm down. It was obviously because like the mustache. I think there was like a Netflix show or something that was out at the same time, so it was like basically like making a Jeffrey Dahmer joke now.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even know Austin Matthews was part Hispanic either. But it's like, everyone got mad at him for that, saying he was like a racist comment, when it was literally just like, if you said I look like any other.
Bro, he has a mustache.
Like observational joke.
Yeah, he has a mustache from the 80s. Like, I could do, if I'm rocking that mustache, I'd be called Pablo Escobar. Like, what do you mean? All right, we're moving on.
Hey, listen, when I have my mustache, it is the porn stash from the 80s.
Yeah. And
for whatever reason, like, can we just, like, have a 2-second conversation here? And I'm going to call my wife out specifically on this. Like, when I first had the mustache, she's like, oh, it's so bad, it's so, whatever, and she wanted me clean-shaven or something. And then, for whatever reason, like, the last time I had it, it was like, that's hot.
Oh.
Like, what do you mean? What do you... Like, I looked like Ken Bone when I was at that Tempe council meeting, and I thought it was funny, but, like, I like the stash and all, but... What do you like? What changed about the mustache? What made it go from I don't like it to I don't know? It's kind of hot. That's a pretty thick mustache. That's a good caterpillar you got there, boys.
Thought my wife was. She originally really liked the long hair, like what I have now. But I would shave my head when the summer rolled around because it'd get too hot. And she started liking my short hair all of a sudden after like a few times. I'm just like, what changed? You know, like nothing changed.
Do you think like women have like that ideal look they want for their guy, and then whenever the guy goes against that, it's like, oh, I don't like it. But then they get used to it, and they're like, honestly, that's not bad. Like, do you think that's what it is?
Probably.
It has to be, because even with the beard before, like she didn't like it. And I'm like, as long as you've known me, I've always rocked the beard.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
I have a weak. I'm not leafy, but I have a weak chin when the beard's gone. So it's like I gotta hide it.
You and I both are part of the Weak Chin Society. All right. We are founding members of that society. If you'd like to join the Weak Chin Society, feel free to send in a request at Desert Moon Hockey on Twitter.
I'm gonna have the most interesting DMs to look through. Anyway, we are so far off topic.
We've derailed.
We've derailed. You know what? In honor of this conversation, I'm going to, without my wife knowing until she gets home, I'm going to shave back down to the mustache, and I will record her reaction and post it on Twitter. So look at the AZ Sports Guy, or even at Desert Moon Hawk, because I couldn't put hockey, so Desert Moon Hawk. And there you go. We'll have this mustache conversation on Twitter. But for the Coyotes,
yes,
they have that good comeback win last night. Good competitive hockey. It's fun to watch. I did bring up the schedule because I did want to look ahead just a little bit. Because I'm like, look, Washington's not as good as they should be. Coming up, they got on Tuesday up against Buffalo. They're a good team. You probably don't win that one. New York, they're starting to figure it out. I think there's a 30% chance they come out with a win, but I'd be happy with a loss there. The Devils seem like they're also kind of finally figuring some stuff out.
Finally.
Probably lose that, which is good because I don't like Jack Hughes. New York Rangers, you probably lose that again. Then you go to Vegas, you're going to lose that. Nashville, I think they beat Nashville. I think they got Nashville, Carolina, Detroit, and Minnesota to end the month. I think they walk out of Nashville and maybe Detroit with victories. I think Minnesota's finally started to figure it out to where they'll be a playoff team by the time, or at least like a little better of a playoff team by the time Coyotes get there. But I feel like Nashville and Detroit are the two games that are winnable.
All right, I'm calling it now. I'm calling my shots here.
Let's do it.
Detroit, gonna be 8 goals. Coyotes are putting up 8 goals again.
Oh my God.
Detroit's getting blown out in Detroit by the Coyotes.
That's gonna be an interesting episode.
That's our insert sports betting app bet of the game.
Yeah, make sure to
Moneyline,
to go to
whatever it's
insert that sports betting. Insert that. Sports
Actually, I got
betting.
one.
Please waste your money.
Actually, for one time only.
Oh my God.
One free advertisement.
No, we do not do free ads unless it has something to do.
It has to do with the Coyotes.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
It has to do with the
Sonic
Coyotes.
the Hedgehog, no free ads. Okay. Is it Sahara Bets?
Use Sahara Bets. Did you know that Sahara Bets was owned by our owner, Alex Morello? Use hashtag Sahara Bets as whatever. I'm done with the skit.
Use our promo code mustache. Anyway,
use promo code Pablo.
Anyway, that brings me to our last topic because you guys are lucky. We give you like back-to-back long episodes. We like to give it to our viewers long and hard. But anyway.
Wow. All right. Really provocative there.
I am the most provocative Coyotes podcaster. Anyway, let's talk about the Goodwill.
All right, we got to speed run this though. We are.
I was gonna make a separate video. Instead, I'm just gonna throw it in the Coyotes report. I'll talk about it here. Of course, the jokes write themselves. Ha ha, funny, hee hee. Here's the reason why Goodwill is actually the perfect sponsor, and you heard it here first. I don't know if you ever worked at a Goodwill, but my sister and her now husband did, and
my mother-in-law did.
I know it's supposed to be a non-profit, but they have things like sales quotas and executives that come in and harass the store employees that also wear like $1,000 suits and drive very nice cars. So if anything, Goodwill is such a perfect sponsor because you like the Coyotes, you think they're a garbage organization. You think they're a poverty franchise, but in reality, they're making so much money behind the scenes you cannot fathom. But the company itself can't post a profit because they're a non-profit, so they pay their executives very well. It's how a lot of charities get away with being non-profits. But
yep.
Just to give you a little bit of a truth bomb there from a very extremely based libertarian.
Fun fact: in the United States, a non-profit or a charity only has to put like 10% of the actual revenue to charity. That is the truth. That only 10%. So if I'm just gonna make up a charity here that this isn't actually true, but if like Make-A-Wish is getting like $1 million a year, only 10% of that actually has to go to charity-based incentives. The rest of the money could go anywhere else it likes.
There is one like actual reason for some of the money. It's like you do need to pay people to operate it.
Yeah.
And also like essentially marketing, because hey, if I have Matt for Dogs Foundation, I want people to know the foundation exists. I want them to know, hey, we're doing this for dogs. Hey, I want you to come adopt the dogs. Like, you need to know about it, or else you're not really helping out. So I do get, like, a certain portion of it going to growing it, and, like, hey, you gotta operate it, gotta make sure people know what's going on. You can offer more help that way. But when the actual number is 10% going to the actual cause, that's the main reason why I do not like charities, and I highly recommend if you have money that you want to give to charity, try to make a difference in someone's life specifically first. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, if you're friends with a family that they're struggling to get by, like, hey, I was gonna donate $100 for like Salvation Army or whatever. How about buy them a meal? Like,
yeah, I would say
I found it personally, it's always more worth it to make a difference in an individual's life because at least like you're helping someone. You know?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're going to want to donate, buy food and give it to a food bank. By far, that is the most important thing that you can do charitably for your community. As somebody who had to use food banks growing up as a kid, they're very important, and they're very, 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 good donations and like actually contributing, well to society.
Because straight up right there, it's like. It's kind of the moral dilemma you have, and like when you want to give money to a homeless person, it's like, well, you don't know what they're going to use the money for. But if you give food to a homeless person, you give clothes to a homeless person, you give food or clothes
Blanket,
to someone that needs it, stuff like that. Straight up, there is no question of what are they going to use it on. It's I'm helping them in this way, like specifically. Hey, Becky down the street, doesn't have a turkey for Thanksgiving or something like that. Okay, well I know at the very least now Becky has a turkey. So it's like my personal philosophy is always like hey, fill up someone's gas tank. If you're gonna put that money in charity, fill up someone's gas tank instead, because that's especially when they were like $6 a gallon. Oh yeah, that makes a huge difference. Like the amount of times I've had like $10 to put in my gas tank, and I'm like, how am I gonna work this out? Throughout, whether it's my bad decisions or not, I take responsibility for the times it was my bad decisions. But it's like I know that makes a difference. So it's like seriously consider like specific people or specific families are trying to help specifically, so it's like you're helping someone instead of just, well, I gave money to a charity, so they're probably helping someone.
Yep.
Anyway, that was a very weird tangent.
That was a weird tangent. But to end off the tangent, Goodwill good, because it's a great sponsor for the Coyotes. They might not be they might not be a good company, but great company for the Coyotes.
Well, because as Craig Morgan pointed out, they do at the very least, like, unironically, they do provide goods for like good prices, and it is better, like.
That would be the value that you're giving to the community. Essentially, is that it's a secondhand thrift store, right?
So it's like, hey, there's a bunch of clothes no one wants to wear. Instead of throwing it away, well, now someone that, hey, I don't know if you noticed, even at Walmart, clothes are getting expensive. To where it's like, I might start going to those like little discount stores. Like you can get some pretty decent little clothes there. But it's like, hey, I can't afford $10 for a shirt. I can go to Goodwill and get 3 of them for $6.
Yep.
So it's
anytime I'm getting like dress clothes, like suit jackets and stuff like that, I always go to like Goodwill and St. Vincent de Paul, and there was another one that I go to as well. That's for the Humane Society, I think. That one's on Cave Creek or somewhere up there. I go to there as well. They always great to find dress clothes there because a lot of people like they'll wear like a suit like 5 times. It's like a brand new suit, and you get it for like $20, $30.
That's how I got my suit coat. Like we were at, cause I think I was doing it for like when I was transitioning to the new setup for the channel, and it's like, hey, it'd be kind of cool to have that. The same thing I wore for our little draft party, and it's like it looks nice. I think my wife paid $8 for it. It wasn't expensive, and it's like, hey, look, I'm not a very fancy dresser, but I have a use for it. Very good value, stuff like that. There's this place I like going to. It's a card shop. It's like more like a secondhand shop. I go there for like trading cards. I'm not gonna say the name specifically because I no free promotion, but it's on Grand. But if you like in the same plaza, it's like this little discount store, and I'm like, I might need to come get some dress shirts here. There's some nice polos here, and it's like $10 or $6 for some of the shirts. I'm like, dude, I'm not picky. I'm not up to date with the latest fashion trends. I just want to have a nice shirt. I'd like to have a few good work shirts.
Yep. I agree. So anyways, if you want...
Goodwill good, Coyotes bad. Remember to move them to Houston. Make sure to dislike and unsubscribe. Like we shouldn't even have a platform. Like we're such trash fans and trash people that honestly you should probably cancel us and take the Pablo joke out of context. I think that's what you should do. All right, go away, subscribe, whatever. Love you guys.
All right, see you later.